Hello, my wonderful queer viewers, or otherwise, and welcome back to yet another episode of Seasonal Gay Anime Spotlight, the show where I look at the queer characters of each season of anime and talk about them as they are up to this point in the spring season of 2022. Let's jump right in. Let's start off with the big one for this video, and that is the Executioner and Her Way of Life. I really like how this anime subverts the typical isekai anime tropes in both a unique and queer way.
The anime starts with a Japanese student being transported into a fantasy world. This fantasy world being a place that is comparable to our world but with magic, due to Japanese students being transported here all the time. And I don't know why, but this image is just hilarious to me. After being rejected by the kingdom due to his perceived weak power, the boy runs into Menno, who at first seems to be the cliché main love interest. That is until, after exhibiting dangerous power and a warped personality hidden underneath, Menno kills a Japanese student. Turns out she's a part of a group of executioners that kill these transported people from another world due to the fact that when their power goes out of control, it always causes many people to die, like what happened to Menno's village. Turns out that another Japanese student was transported along with the boy, a girl named Akari. So Menno immediately goes off to kill her and seems successful at first, but Menno discovers that Akari has time powers, allowing her to essentially be immortal and impossible to kill. So Menno has to take Akari to a place in Guam that can get rid of her for good and keep her there by pretending to be Akari's close friend before Akari's powers get out of control. But this might be hard for two reasons. One is that Menno continues to have memories of being in a foreign place and someone like Akari being her destined someone. And the second is that Menno senses that Akari has been using her time powers multiple times, all to save Menno, meaning that her powers are already on the path to getting out of control.
Before we get into the queerness of the characters, can I just say how much I adore this subverted isekai plot? It's so genius.
So of course there's the main duel of Menno and Akari, in that Menno has to pretend to be Akari's friend in order to gain her trust to eventually kill her, like she's done to numerous Japanese students already. But as mentioned before, Menno feels some kind of path of fate and destiny in meeting Akari, and that the two of them are meant to be together. Akari is already very affectionate towards Menno and seems to be using her time powers unconsciously to save Menno's life. And the big plot twist at the end of episode 5 is that it turns out that the nobilese and the church are in cahoots with each other, with the archbishop wanting to use Akari's time powers in order to restore her youth.
Unfortunately, the anime does lose some points in having a character like Momo, the stereotypical predatory lesbian.
Momo is, without a doubt, completely in love with Menno, as she continues to mention multiple times, mostly due to Menno taking care of Momo when they were younger, giving her the ribbons that Momo wears in her hair. She always tries to grope Menno inappropriately, gets her in various outfits to secretly take pictures, and can get very jealous of other girls getting close to Menno, like Akari. It really sucks that she's a main character, because I really don't like this kind of lesbian character.
But where the anime loses me with Momo, it wins me back with Asuna.
The princess of the kingdom that's currently summoning the Japanese students, Asuna, is on the hunt for the group of executioners that have been killing the Japanese students, and those that wish to kill her father, the king, which brings her at odds with Menno and Momo. Though at the end of episode 5, it looks like that Asuna might be teaming up with the two of them now that she's discovered the connection between the nobilese and the church. Now this is the type of character that I can get behind, a muscle-bound woman who loves nothing more than fighting. She also states that she loves people who are both strong and beautiful, including Momo when she fights her. And if that isn't a pansexual queen, I don't know what is.
The Executioner and Her Way of Life is a unique Yuri isekai anime that I'm definitely liking a lot so far. I can't wait to see what direction it goes in, as long as there is much less of Momo. A small one to mention is Viperi from Birdie Wing Golf Girl Story. This is an anime that has Yuri written all over it, especially with people shipping the two leads of Eve and Aoi, even though I think the twist will be that the two of them are secret stepsisters. But anyway, so far there's only one explicit lesbian character, but unfortunately it's yet another psycho predatory lesbian stereotype. Seriously, is it just me, or is this character trope getting a resurgence in anime or something?
Viperi is an underground golfer.
Yes, it's that type of anime.
Who Eve is forced to play a short round of golf against. While the higher up people bet money, Viperi does a personal bet with Eve, that the loser is essentially the winner's slave for a day. And while Eve just wants a ride back, Viperi makes it pretty clear that she'll have sex with Eve throughout the entire day, no matter how much he protests.
Oh, and by the way, Eve is an underage girl, so that's just great.
Thankfully, Eve manages to win after she figures out Viperi's trick. Something to note is that there's a hint that Eve's sponsor Rose and Viperi has had a sexual history before.
It'll have to remain to be seen if Viperi will either be a recurring character or just a one-off. In my opinion, though, I'm hoping for the latter. Now let's move on to our next segment, recap of last season. The part of the show where I look at the queer anime of last season and talk about whether their characters ended nicely or badly. but that does mean that there are spoilers ahead. You've been warned. Let's start off with the characters we'll be talking about the most in this episode, and that being Sasaki, Miyano, Hinano, and Hanazawa's two brothers from Sasaki and Miyano. Let's go from small to big in terms of these queer characters.
Throughout the anime, classmate of Sasaki and chairman of the student council Hanazawa seems to know about the special connection between Sasaki and Miyano, and like during the cultural festival, he tries to get Miyano to realize his feelings for Sasaki. But at the same time, a somber gloom seems to follow Hanazawa surrounding his brother. When we get to meet Hanazawa's brother, he presumes that both him and Sasaki are dating, and in a flashback scene, we see the brother very bluntly and randomly tell his mother and other brothers and sister that he is gay, so don't expect any grandchildren. At the same time, another brother confesses that he might like guys as well. The mother says that she supports this, but puts a spotlight on Hanazawa when she asks him about this. Hanazawa says that he likes girls, which makes the mother sigh a breath of relief. This seems to upset Hanazawa, worried about his two brothers and the unique future that is ahead of them. But in seeing both Sasaki and Miyano together and their relationship, Hanazawa has come to the conclusion that there is nothing wrong with two guys dating, and should be treated as something completely normal, despite what his mother might secretly think. Hanazawa apologizing to his brother if he was ever mean or treated him differently because he was dating guys.
I like this subplot. The calm and sudden confession of the two brothers coming out was a little refreshing despite the sigh of relief coming from the mother upon hearing at least Hanazawa was straight. Not that she hates her two sons now, but it more has to do with the perceived notion of how a same-sex relationship is seen by the outside world, and the difficulties that will come of it. And it led to the conclusion that Hanazawa comes to, allowing him to help Miyano out in the last episode, which I'll get into in a little bit. One thing I was disappointed in the anime, though, when compared to the manga, has to do with Sasaki's friend Hirano. In the manga, during some extra chapters, it's revealed that Hirano has a crush on his roommate.
The only moment that hints at this crush is during the setup for the cultural festival during a montage, but that's about it.
Hopefully with the upcoming extra anime material, we'll finally get some moments between Hirano and his roommate. But let's get into the title characters of the anime, Sasaki and Miyano themselves.
It honestly doesn't take that long for Sasaki to confess his feelings for Miyano and convince him that this confession isn't him joking around, but is for real. He wants him and Miyano to date and be boyfriends. But he understands that this might be a little much for Miyano, so he gives him some time to give him an answer.
And it was during this that I wondered what kind of arc Sasaki would have now that he confessed and we're just waiting for Miyano's answer. And what happened was something that I really appreciated.
Like I mentioned last time, Sasaki's more aggressive moments of jealousy and intimacy did make me worried that the anime was relying on stereotypical BL tropes that I really dislike. And unfortunately, we do get some moments like this. Sasaki drags Miyano away when he's talking to a girl that he went to middle school with just because they were touching hands. He doesn't want Miyano to cause stress for his class for the cultural festival, not wanting any of the other boys to see how cute Miyano is and fall in love with him. But in an amazing moment for a BL anime, when Sasaki almost kisses Miyano, he realizes all that he's been doing. He comes to understand his aggressiveness and his jealousy given the fact that him and Miyano aren't dating yet. So he continues to apologize to Miyano, now thinking that their friendship is over because of the way he's been acting.
We'll get back to that in a second, but I have to say that I really appreciate this character arc. As I've mentioned many times before, I hate how most BL relationships in anime and manga rely on the aggressiveness of the most dominant character, forcing themselves upon the more submissive character. And this is something that Sasaki himself realizes, learning the wrong that he's been doing and comes to terms with it, bettering himself so that he doesn't become a bad person and lose Miyano. Speaking of, let's talk about the other title character.
Sasaki goes through two character arcs throughout the anime. The first is coming to terms with his more feminine appearance that he hated when he was in middle school. He's realized that he started to grow up and is slowly getting more masculine, and even if he wasn't, someone who loves him like Sasaki does will always love him as a boy no matter what, allowing him to gain the confidence to cross-dress for his class for the cultural festival, to the point where he stands up for himself when Sasaki objects to it, because he really wants to help his class. But the important character arc that Miyano goes through is figuring out an answer to Sasaki's confession. He takes a long time to figure it out, mostly because he doesn't want to disappoint Sasaki if his own feelings end up being not true. But throughout the months, he begins to discover things. He discovers how much fun he always has with Sasaki, how he always wants to be with him, how he wants to help him no matter what, how much he makes him smile, how much he wants to hug him, and even that he wants to kiss him. Holy shit. He's in love with Sasaki. There's no denying it anymore, but now comes the point to find a moment alone with Sasaki to confess to him, because it's hard to confess to another guy in public. And in the final episode, when trying to find Sasaki, Hanazawa tells Miyano that being in a same-sex relationship can be difficult. But he knows that no matter what, just like with his brothers, the two of them will be just fine.
Which closes the circle on Hanazawa's subplot in a very sweet way.
And when Sasaki and Miino finally get a moment alone, Miino confesses to Sasaki that he likes him as well. He wants to date him, and he wants the two of them to be boyfriends. And Sasaki couldn't be more happy. And for people who ask why I love slow burn relationships, it's for the first true moments of intimacy, when Sasaki and Miino hug each other and kiss each other for the first time, loving the fact that the two of them are in love with each other. And with the previously mentioned second season coming out, it'll be nice to see how Sasaki and Miino's relationship progresses, especially since they got a bunch of supportive friends by their side.
Sasaki and Miino is a soft BL anime that I adore. The animation is colorful and warm, the music is soothing, and the characters are lovable and complex in their own way. The anime is definitely an outlier in terms of BL anime, like Dokusei Given, in that it doesn't rely on toxic tropes that I hate so much. I highly recommend it for lovers of BL anime, those looking for great queer representation, or just those who want to see a soft and warm romance. Can't wait for the extra anime material. And lastly, while there's no queer characters that appear in the anime, that comes later in the manga, there is a cute little reference that I want to briefly mention in My Dress Up Darling.
While making the second cosplay, Gojo and Kitagawa watched the anime Flower Princess Blaze for preparation and research. In explaining the anime to Gojo, we learned that the magical girl protagonist of the anime has an older brother and a crush that is his age. And we learned that as the anime progresses, there's a romance between the older brother and the girl's crush that appears. And if you couldn't tell by now, this has to be a reference to Toya and Yukito from Cardcaptor Sakura. And later in the anime, Shinju even does a crossplay of the older brother character.
It's nothing major, but you know that I all adore Toya and Yukito so much, so I just wanted to briefly mention it. And that's the end of the episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, like and comment on anything you want to say. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more, and follow me on Twitter at @TransAnimeLover. Catch you later.